Reito Mizuhara is a wannabe Einstein who contracts a terminal disease that has no cure and drains his family's pockets chasing his science dreams. After they put him in cryo-sleep for 5 years while they researched a cure, Reito later wakes up to a world with no men. Now the delusional scientist is forced to clap all the women on the planet to help repopulate. The year was 2040 in a highly advanced Tokyo. The advancement of AI created a civilization where barely anybody worked, and those that did only showed up because they liked stress. On the roof of the National Advanced Medical School, Reito had called Elisa Tachibana, his childhood friend, to tell her that he had always loved her. Elisa revealed that she always knew, but it was too late as Maida had already asked her out. Someone cue the sad boy music. He revealed that the reason he decided to spill the beans was because he had contracted cellular sclerosis and had to go into cryo-sleep for 5 years to wait for the completion of the cure, so they got into a fight and she left. His siblings then escorted him to the hospital for his procedure. After he got checked up by Dr. Takagi, he was about to say his final goodbyes at the cryo chamber when Elisa came. After his older brother, Ryu, let her in, he gave her his necklace as a keepsake and went into the chamber. Before going under, she told him that she would wait for him to wake up. He then woke up 5 years later to the face of a heavy milk jug attendant and a room filled with female nurses. After getting checked out by a doctor, she explained that he was fully cured of his disease. When he asked about Dr. Takagi, she simply told him that the doctor was no more. He then asked about his family and got escorted out by the purple-haired attendant while the doctor kept staring weirdly. Suumira, the mommy milker's attendant, took him through town in a limo and explained to him that during his sleep a deadly MK virus spread throughout the globe and had halved the entire population. Seeing the state of the city, he freaked out and ran. After seeing some creepy women who seemed surprised to see him, he ran further and realized that he hadn't seen any men. Sue soon caught up to him and explained that the virus, called the man-killer virus, had only affected men and practically wiped out the entire male species, leaving only a handful of men who were in cryo-sleep across the world, and he was one of 5 who could survive in public due to reasons they suspected could be connected to cellular sclerosis. After a random lady tried to grab him and got tased, Sue told him that in order to save the world, he had to clap all the women.
Oh my god! Wow!
Damn, I wish I was this kid. Right now, I can't even bag a 5 out of 10 without the cops being called on me. Back at the facility, she explained how the virus wiped out all the men in barely 3 months. The only survivors were put in cryo-sleep. Out of those survivors, only 5, including him, who also had cellular sclerosis, had developed resistance to the virus. The first man had already been awakened, and he was the second after the explanation. She once again reminded him of his new purpose as the great Johnny Sins 2.0. He refused to do it, so she brought in his sister Mahiru, who was excited to see him again. She told him that their brother Ryu was also in cryo-sleep with the other men, and Elisa had gone missing. Hearing that broke his heart. Later that night, after getting briefed by a superior, Sue tried to get clapped by him, but got rejected as her resemblance to Elisa was freaking him out. She got mocked by the attendant who was assigned to the first man out of cryo. Meanwhile, Reito remembered that the necklace he gave to Elisa had a tracker and saw that it was still active. The next day, Sue showed him the room of women and told him that he had to become a breeding machine. When he declined, she explained that aside from an intense desire to get clapped, having a baby from any of the 5 men like him would help them survive, as their feminist world had gotten extremely difficult. He asked her to give him a month to find Elisa first. She agreed on the condition that he would at least stay with a woman of her choosing for 1 night. Hinokyoji, the first awakened man, was receiving a massage from 2 females while watching a movie featuring Kitayama Reina, a star he had a crush on. His attendant came in to get him for the daily breeding ritual. Seeing as he had trouble picking a candidate, she decided to get the movie star. Hino went to his room where Reina came to see him while wearing the outfit from the movie. After having breakfast, which was prepared by a bunch of female top chefs that Hino had requested, Sue, who had devoured a full buffet including Reito's parfait, told him that she had assigned a bodyguard and a nurse to him, and they would be staying with him at all times. While heading back to his room, he ran into Hino, who had to tutor the goody two-shoes on the ways of man. While having his bath and thinking about Elisa, the lights went out. He tried reaching for something and grabbed onto a milk jug. The owner of the jugs hugged him and introduced herself as Ryuzuji Akane. He tried to fight away from the hug, but after she drank something and put it into his mouth, he stopped resisting. After she knelt down and did something to his lower body, he passed out on her shoulder. He woke up in bed and saw a little green-haired girl who introduced herself as Sui Yamada. After a night of wide-eyed resisting, he was panda-eyed for their trip to the animal experiment facility the next day. He brought them there as that was where Elisa's lab was located. After they got into the facility, a suspicious person released a bear that attacked them. After saving Sui and getting nicked by its claws, Akane asked her to do her job. Sui jumped and bounced off the ceiling to knock out the grizzly with a dropkick to the skull. The mini-goblin was actually his bodyguard, who apologized for a sloppy first day, while Akane was his nurse. They later got to Elisa's lab, which had been trashed. He found out that she had been researching the MK virus before disappearing. Seeing her picture in the lab made him remember where they started. After finding out that her dog had an incurable illness, a young Elisa decided to become a scientist and find a cure. She was already friends with Rado, who decided to join her and become a scientist as well. After Sue revealed that the total number of men in cryosleep was around 5 million globally, he got on a live broadcast and told the whole world that he would find a cure to the MK virus. A lady in a hood that looked like Elisa saw his broadcast. He had decided that helping the sleeping men reintegrate into society would return things to normal. While talking with Mahiru, who was worried following his global debut, they found a teddy bear that belonged to Elisa with a smart ring in it. When he opened the files on it, Reiko had left a message telling him that the MK virus was actually man-made and warned him to be careful. Later that evening, he met with Sue, who was stuffing her face, and took a walk with her. After comparing her to Elisa and apologizing for his refusal to be a breeding machine, she told him that he was a nice guy. While having a bath, she went through an existential crisis while comparing her looks to Elisa's. A suspicious group had a meeting and clowned the Einstein wannabe for failing to fulfill his harem duties like Haino, who was having a 1v3 with Reina and other girls. They decided to make preparations for the third MKV-resistant man. Another attendant got briefed to prepare for the latest breeding machine. The year was 2040. A third-year student named Doi Shuda was getting his uniform drenched in toilet bowl water by Takamatsu, another kid who bullied him for being a die-hard otaku. After his daily sessions that left him scarred, he walked the hallways while his schoolmates looked at him with pity and disgust. He saw a former friend who was actually a prey of the Takamatsu group until Doi stood up for him and became Doji the bullied. He went to his piano class. Yuzu, his teacher, was the only one who cared for him. The milk jug mistress had a special type of love for him and wasn't shy to show it. After he told her about some pains he was experiencing, she told him to get checked out. He went to the hospital and found out that he had cellular sclerosis. At school the next day, Yuzu announced his withdrawal as he would be going into cryo sleep. His classmates couldn't care less. At the end of the day, after seeing Yuzu for the last time, he tried going out through the backyard and saw Takamatsu clapping Erika. After they saw him, they gave him a final beatdown as a parting gift. Even his father wasn't around for his procedure. His sister, who also couldn't come see him as she was in the US, was the only one that called before he went under. He woke up 5 years later to Erika Kamiya, his designated attendant. She caught him up to speed on the current events and helped him get prepped to return to school. She left out a few details, specifically the presence of the other MKV-resistant men, and told him that he would be going back to his old school, which was now an all-girls school that she would also be attending. After getting settled in his dorm room, she brought him to class the next day where he couldn't keep a straight face as all the girls were looking into his soul. Karen told him to meet up after classes. She took him to a classroom where he reunited with Yuzu. She was excited to see him and asked him to see her later at night. Later on, at gym class, all he could think about was what Yuzu likely wanted to talk about. Karen met him and gave him the names and special features of the girls in his class. He was still very shy, but was happy that none of his old mates were there and his current ones at least seemed nice. At night, he met up with Yuzu, who was telling him all about how the last 5 years played out. He couldn't hear a word she said, as his main focus was on her milk jugs that had become fuller than he last remembered. She decided to give him a personal reward for beating his sickness, a reward that he was happy to receive. After getting his reward, he clapped his piano teacher. The next day, while he reminisced in class, Ichijuo Natsu, who sat next to him, approached him. He showed her his K-pop idols and was shocked when she seemed interested. She pinched him and left when Hiragi Shunka took over the conversation. After classes, he went to the gym where the G-Cup to do Akira was playing volleyball. Kuroda Rain Chifuyu, the genius dwarf with a hot head, saw him and challenged Tudu to a match. Tudu initially declined, but proceeded to annihilate the midget when she saw Doi. After the ball knocked him down, he got swarmed by the ladies parties, and To-Do used the opportunity to offer herself to the K-pop stan. He later met up with Yuzu, who did a magic trick to make his latest bruise go away. She asked him to do the same trick for her milk jugs, and he didn't hesitate. Now, Karen had a briefing session with a superior and explained why it was important to go to such lengths for him. The girls in the school didn't know about Reito and thought Doi was the only awakened man, which made it easier for the spineless weeb to become a breeding machine. Doi, who had never clapped before, became a clapping addict and clapped Yuzu anywhere and any time. They practically became roommates at one point. One day, Karen decided to take him to the pool, where he noticed that he was getting an unreal amount of attention from the girls. After stretching, they had a swimming contest for something he didn't know yet. After Kuroda once again boasted of being superior and exposed To-Do's jugs when she tried to blind Doi with her swimsuit, she got tossed into the water and forgot how to stand up. Ichijuo ended up winning the swim-off. Before dusk, Doi tried scheduling a clapping session with his teacher again, but she took a rain check. He heard a knock on his door and saw Ichijuo, who was going to be his new roommate. Karen explained that the girls would be shuffling themselves every week to be his roommate.
Oh my god! Wow!
Ichijo was the first, as she had won the swim-off. The next morning, after getting dressed, Ichijo made him assist her with her uniform. When he told Karen about it, she explained that Ichijo was from a very wealthy family and normally had people doing everything for her, including that. He had a conversation with Shunka about his new roommate and realized that he was better at talking to girls. Later that night, Yuzu took another rain check. She was going through her monthly lady time and told him to get friendly with his new roommate. After getting tucked in, Ichijuo asked for his company as she didn't want to stay alone.
Okay.
She revealed that she was actually betrothed to a middle-aged man but got saved by the virus. He responded by clapping her for the rest of the night. Meanwhile, Reito had become super famous and was getting worried about his sister, as the women of the world could find out about their relationship and possibly harm her. The next day after waking up, Doi helped his new roommate get rehydrated while Reito got his sword smacked by Hino, who was still surprised that he hadn't used it and revealed that he was expecting his first child. Doi finally met up with Yuzu, who ran out crying after telling him that he was public property. He met up with Karen and told her that he had figured out that there were probably other MKV-resistant men out there and that she was forcing the girls to pretend to like him. She took him to class and revealed that despite being close to the truth, all the girls actually did like the scrawny nerd and wanted him to clap them. To prove her point, they all got up and showed him their milk jugs.
Perfect.
Meanwhile, the higher-ups had decided to stop Suo from being Reito's attendant as she had failed to make him a clapper like the other MKV-resistant men. Reito, who was still making no progress with his MKV vaccine or cure, was stepping out of his office when he ran into a lady who had skipped the lecture on laboratory safety. After signing off on something for some of the facility workers, he got a call from Suo. Two women from the United Women HQ had come to the facility and brought Suo's replacements. Katagiri Rhea and Kuroda Maria were to be his new assistants. The higher-ups figured that getting 2 milk jugs in his face might make him remember that he is a man. Maria was a research scientist who would assist with his vaccine project, and Rhea was a citizen relations officer. Suo was no longer his attendant, but was allowed to remain with him as a potential mating candidate. As Suo left the room, Rhea met up with her and spoke to her as if they had a more intimate relationship. Later on, the group went on a trip. Maria told him that they were headed to a hot spring in Kieman City where the first case of the MK virus in Japan was found. Once at the hot springs, they got settled in. Rhea informed them that they had the place to themselves, except for a group of students who were there on a trip. After settling in, Reito went to take a bath and ended up having to tuck his sword away as all the girls joined him. He managed to survive despite helping them wash up. He almost folded when Akane displayed her usual antics, but managed to escape. The next day, they visited a patient named Miss Taniguchi. Her husband was Japan's first recorded case of the viral infection, but he was a Tarzan wannabe who lived off the grid, so the only way of knowing what he was doing around the time of infection was to question his wife, who hated the United Women and wanted to be left alone. Miss Taniguchi, for some reason, was in touch with Elisa and told her about her boyfriend's visit. After failing to get any information from her again, Reito convinced Sui to let him chill in the open bath. When the schoolgirls came around, he hid in the sauna where an exchange student named Chloe found him. She forced him to play a game with her and ended up getting a kiss through her clever tactics, but failed to get clapped. The next day after meeting Miss Taniguchi, she asked for a massage and demanded special bakery treats from him. While he left, she asked Suo about him. She revealed that Reito was selfish for hoarding his sword, but stood a chance to save humanity. After he came back, she asked him why he refused to become a certified clapper, and he claimed that it was because of his love for Elisa. She told him to return the next day for the stories he wanted. After talking to Elisa about him that night, someone poisoned her. After they found her the next day, a nurse gave him a picture of Miss Taniguchi with her husband that she had requested be given to him. He took it and promised to return when she got better. Akane seemed suspicious of something. Reito, Maria, and Sui went to the old Keiman hospital where Mr. Taniguchi had been brought when he got infected. Meanwhile, Hino, who had added Rika, the hottest girl from his pre-virus job, to his harem, was starting to get bored of the daily clapping routine. Akane met with Rhea in the bath at night to reveal her suspicions and question the mean officer about her whereabouts on the night of Miss Taniguchi's poisoning. She left after Rhea mentioned the name of Director Kihara. On the way back, Reito got the picture of Miss Taniguchi back from Maria and noticed that it connected with Elisa's smart ring. They passed Keiman High School, where Maria revealed that her sister went. Outside the school, Karen was seeing off Kuzu, who seemed to have decided to leave the harem high. Meanwhile, Hino, who was out looking for someone to spice up his harem, found Mahiru and said he wanted her. At a train station, Reito went into the bathroom and viewed the files from the picture and found out that it contained instructions on how to make the MK virus. Later that day, Rhea met up with her sister, who was about to get clapped by some random girl and told her to do something for her. The next day, Reito asked Maria about the lack of research on the virus. She told him that the United Women directed resources to producing food. The researchers and scientists that could help them were all at the American branch. As they spoke, Hino's attendant called him aside. She told him about Hino's new wishes, which Mahiru was completely against as she was still 16 and technically underage. Hino met up with him and begged for at least a conversation and managed to convince the anti-clapping nerd, who seemed okay with his underage sister joining a harem. The higher-ups from the UDU also had a talk about it and reminded the attendants that consent was still very mandatory. More importantly, they needed a solution to the pending riots in the refugee camps. Swu suggested making Reito give out rations to calm the masses, and they accepted the idea. Akane and Maria pulled him into the shower and discussed the plan with him. They had their suspicions and knew he had found something in Keiman. Akane revealed that Director Kihara was her mother, but she didn't trust the UW. After almost getting busted by Rhea, they told him about their plan. Meanwhile, Rhea went to profess her love to So and got rejected. The next day, before sharing rations, Reito and his trusted companion set up a hideout with old computers in the refugee area and started some research as they didn't trust the higher-ups as well as Rhea. While he shared rations, a sniper almost took him out but was stopped by Rhea's sister. The suspicious attendant was protecting him because she knew that his death would upset Suo. After the ration sharing, he arranged the meetup between Hino and Mahiru while Hino's girls discussed Reito's inability to clap. After Mahiru rejected the board clapper, Reito got back to his squad of detectives. Maria was using a hacked network a researcher friend in America had taught her. Meanwhile, Hino decided to take a different approach and spice things up with other items. Reina, who noticed that he wanted more, went to comfort him later on. Back at the hideout, Akane returned and terrified Sui, who was scared of ghosts. After looking through the abandoned hospital's records, Maria found out that her researcher friend Kawakami Riona and other researchers who were meant to be at the American branch had actually gone missing in the abandoned Keiman hospital. Doi was on his last days with Ichijo but had already gotten tired of clapping. He stepped out to get some fresh air and got sent back in by Karen, who reminded him that he wasn't allowed off the premises. The next day in class, Karen made the girls play a lottery game to decide who would get clapped next. After Yanagi Rika won it, he immediately lost his clapping spirit. While using the men's room, she came to speak with him and told him that she was ready for a clapping session. Seeing her face reminded him of Erika and Takamatsu, so he ran away. He found the teacher's office and wanted to get some alone time, but got interrupted by Shunka. After speaking with her, he realized that they had both been bullied and decided to give her the best clapping he had ever given. After spending the day clapping, they went back to his place and met Rika, who was waiting for him. When the girl started to brawl over him, he ran away again and sat outside the building trying to get some air. He tried calling his sister, but she had been avoiding him ever since he became a certified clapper. Tudu, who was running, found him and sat with him. When he told her that the bump from the volleyball incident still hurt, she offered him anything he wanted in return. When he jokingly asked for her milk jugs, she immediately gave them to him. He took them in his hands and ran away again. The next day, he saw her cleaning the gym and went to apologize for blackmailing her into giving away her heavy milk jugs. She accepted and made him help her clean up. When he got in, she shut the door, trapped him inside, and introduced him to a new style of clapping. After the new clapping lessons, she apologized for her rough teachings, but he didn't mind. The next day, Karen started a new system of setting him up with school wives. His first was Rika. After she tried exchanging fluids with him, he fell and bruised his palm. They took him to the nurse, who checked him out and placed him on a large bed. When he asked about the bed's size, she told him that it was for advanced treatment. They had brought in Ichijuo, Tudu, and Shunka to assist with the special treatment that included clap therapy. While the treatment went on, Karen watched from her office with a mysterious girl. After getting treated, he found Shifuyu in the science lab as she was preparing a potion for him. He shut down her operation by reminding her that she was a minor. At night, Karen told him about Kuzu's departure.
No! God, please, no! No!
He tried getting her to bring Kuzu back or to let him see her, but she claimed she couldn't do anything. He went to bed realizing that he had become a caged breeding machine. The next day, when his daily wife was announced, he stopped overthinking and exchanged fluids like a Riz demon. After sitting back and contemplating his boring existence, he spent the rest of the day clapping whoever he wanted as he finally accepted his reality as a certified clapper. The next day in class, Karen introduced the mysterious girl from earlier as Hoshino Shion. He immediately recognized her. Shion, a washed-up wannabe idol, was one of his classmates back when he was a living sandbag. Unlike the rest of his mates that looked away when he was getting his belly rearranged, she liked to sit and watch and acted like he was a sideshow. Seeing her face freaked him out, so he ran to the rooftop. She went to see him and tried catching up with her old mate. She told him that the world of entertainment was a difficult one and that she needed his help. He looked at her with disgust and left after asking her why he would help her considering all she did back in school. When she got back inside, all his girls made it very clear to her that she was an old has-been who had no business trying to mingle with them. Back in class, Karen explained how clapping Sean would get her in the good graces of the United Women and could likely help her get back to her idol status. They decided to make her prove how much she really wanted it. She was made to become a Victoria's Secret model for the whole school. After 2 days of torture, he finally exchanged fluids with her and told her to meet back on the roof at the end of the day. On the roof that evening, he called some girls to watch what he planned for her. He turned her into a sideshow and made her relive what he experienced. To finish off the humiliation ritual, he clapped her on the balcony, basically giving her what she wanted in exchange for her self-respect and dignity. After his escapades made him realize how amazing his new life was, Karen told him that he could have anything he wanted, including her, but he wanted something else. Meanwhile, Reito and his detectives had just hit a major milestone. He told them his theory the Keiman Hospital was likely where the virus started. There was no proof yet, so they decided that they would have to take a trip there to find out. Back at Keiman High, Doi was helping the nurse measure the jugs and cakes the girls had. He also helped her make the bed. A couple of evenings later, Karen had gotten him his latest wish. It was Erika Takamatsu's girl. Apparently, she also failed at life and was now a chained-up janitor at her old school. Karen left him to reunite with his old classmate. She tried calling him by his old name and got yanked by the chain. He warned her not to call him Doji and opened up the bruises on his legs. He made her take care of them as she always laughed when her boyfriend inflicted them on him. Karen, who went back to her quarters, had a briefing session with her superior and updated her on the progress with the clapping psycho. They spoke about trouble looming with the United Women and a likely informant. The following days, the clapping psycho became more settled into his new life and started acting out with whoever he wanted. During another swim-off, while Chifuyu swallowed liters of water again, Doi played a game with Tudu and Ichijuo. After everyone else left, he had to punish the girls for their little stunt, and they were happy to be taught a lesson. For the next couple of days, the rest of the girls kept coming for punishments and clapping sessions, and the clapping psycho went a bit more insane. One night, he had another student to teach a lesson. Erika was on the ground beside the second bed. He asked her about Takamatsu, but she didn't know what happened to him. He proceeded to punish the candidate for the day in front of her and slept off. He woke up later that night and saw that Erika wasn't feeling well. She needed medication, so he helped her out by administering it through an aggressive fluid exchange. The next day, Rado and his crew made their way to Keeman Hospital. A messenger named Mansfield from the World HQ of the United Women made her way to Japan. While getting briefed by a superior, she informed her superior that the board of directors from Japan were hiding the knowledge of the rest of the MKV-resistant men. Mansfield was to secure Rado first, and then get information on the rest as well. The Japan directors briefed a redhead about Mansfield's coming. Back at Keeman High, Doi picked out the wife for the day and scheduled a clapping session. She took a rain check and told him that it was her special time. Later that night, Karen dropped a private call to talk with her superior, who wanted to update her on Mansfield's coming. Meanwhile, the wife of the day got a call from Elisa, who apologized for making her join Doi's harem and told her that Mansfield was almost there. Doi continued his clapping sessions in school. The clapping psycho was fully unhinged, and the entire school became a clapping zone. He gradually started to lose his touch with reality. Meanwhile, Reito and his girls got to the abandoned hospital. After Akane asked him about his feelings for Sue and exposed him for being an inexperienced loser, she startled Sui and made her break through a wall. They saw a huge air duct through it and climbed in. Mansfield had finally landed and got straight to business. While Reito and his team of misfits climbed through, they got cramped and fell through. The redhead who worked for the directors found them and decided to silence them permanently. She and her team of Glock ninjas got taken out. Chloe, the massive jug American student, walked out of the shadows with her henchmen. She was actually Mansfield. The dark leather lover was her assistant. She took Rado and his squad into a chopper as the building was rigged to explode and save them. Doi spent that day pushing his limits even further, having multiple clapping lessons at once as a way of choosing his daily wife and going borderline insane in the process. By that night, Karen found Sean trying to escape and recaptured her. Her job as a clapping receiver was not over yet. Chloe, who was with Rado and his girls, rhetorically asked them about their knowledge of the other MKV-resistant men. At the Japan Director's HQ, they denied the redhead and any involvement they had with her, but Director Kahara was quickly found out. She decided to call out her elite squad to take out the dark leather lover. They turned on her, as did the blonde-haired director. She and the others were arrested for manufacturing and spreading the virus. Back on the chopper, Chloe told them about the director's plans and claimed that their actions caused an increase in terrorist activity. She showed him a clip of Elisa, revealing that she was now part of a terrorist group. Seeing the picture reminded him of a conversation they had years ago where he told her to join an NGO to help poor, underprivileged kids after she felt guilty for eating cotton candy. Doi, who was done with his daily escapades, got back and took a close look at Erika. She didn't seem so evil anymore, so he covered her up with a blanket. As he did that, an explosion went off just outside his room. Chloe told Rado and his girls that one of the MKV-resistant men had been kidnapped. Doi woke up in a hospital bed and was greeted by his attendant. After the nurse cleared him, he asked her about the attack. She told him that several people were against the UW and simply decided to attack. His girls, who were worried, broke down the door and rushed to embrace their man. Later that night, he met with Karen on the roof. She revealed that the school actually had a barrier to protect it, but it was disabled, likely by a spy. She then asked him about the hatred he was meant to have for Erika. Apparently, when the blast happened and the ceilings fell through, he jumped on top of her to shield her from the debris. She liked that he was a good person underneath the increasing psychosis. She told him that the World HQ messenger was in town and she wanted him to follow her to Tokyo. When he asked for her plans, she revealed that she wanted to be the #1 woman in the world and wanted him to be the #1 man. He asked her why she didn't want to be his baby mama. She revealed that she preferred being a coach than a player. He liked her ambition and agreed to help her. Elisa's spy, who was watching from a window, called her to apologize for failing to get Doi. Elisa told her to head back to them as they had already gotten the 4th MKV-resistant man. At the Japan HQ, the gang got debriefed by a new face from the higher-ups. All of the MKV-resistant men were to be brought to the building to be protected. Their attendants and bodyguards were to do the same as well. Chloe revealed that mating was to be put on hold. She claimed that the attacks could have been avoided if Japan had simply told them about the other men. She was impressed by Rado, who had somehow managed to hold out from becoming a certified clapper. Her opinion about Hino was very different. Later on, she updated a superior on her progress with the MKV-resistant men and expressed excitement over the creation of a utopia. Meanwhile, Rado was wondering why his girl had decided to become a terrorist. He checked his phone and saw that the tracker on the necklace pinged on a location within the country, meaning that Elisa was somewhere in the country. Akane came to see him. She wanted to talk about something. They got in the shower where she revealed that her mom, Director Kihara, wasn't responsible for the charges made against her. She was hard-headed and stubborn and even missed her son's funeral, but she didn't create the virus. He saw her pain and comforted her. Meanwhile, Chloe went to speak with Hino and told him that Reina couldn't stay with him. She got a taste of the warnings she had been receiving about him when he made it clear that he didn't like being pushed around. Maria had come to call Reito and Akane to see something. Elisa was making a live broadcast. She told the world that the UW was lying to them. As proof, she showed them Kinabuchi Zen, the kidnapped fourth man. She also revealed that a satellite was used to spread the virus after its creation. The owner of the satellite company was on the current board of directors. She told them to hand over all the men who were still in cryo-sleep. The UW wanted to exterminate the male species and build an Amazon wonderworld. They were always researching ways to have children using just the female genes and were very close. A flashback revealed that Sue, who looked eerily similar to Elisa, was likely a clone. Her broadcast was cut off by the UW, who took back control and claimed she was lying. Reito confronted Chloe and she told him that if she really wanted him gone, he and the other MKV-resistant men would have been gone. Akane found a way to speak to her mom, who was in a cell, about the situation. She then met up with Reito, who was planning an escape to meet Elisa. They got into his room and Sui noticed someone else's presence. They got in and found Karen and Doi, who was somehow older. Karen had put the clapping psycho into another cryo-type chamber, but unlike the ones for sleep, this one sped up growth according to specifications. After the process, he had aged a couple more years, but would still preserve his youth for 30 years. She gave him a makeover session and made him look his age. His eyes got fixed in the chamber as well, so he didn't need glasses anymore. After greeting Reito, he asked Doi where he had been. When he told them that he was at Keeman High, Maria got excited. Karen asked him about Mansfield's personality. He explained her words about how Izanami, the terrorist group Elisa was in, was bad news and summarized her daring attitude. Maria, who still didn't know what laboratory safety protocols were, ran to a room where Chifuyu was waiting with Doi's girls. She hugged her sister with excitement while Doi's girls wondered who the mad scientist was. They were extremely mentally fatigued after finding out so much, including the fact that Doi wasn't the only man walking. Doi was speaking with Karen and revealed that he thought Reito was actually smart, significantly more so than Hino. He asked about Yuzu's whereabouts. Karen revealed that Yuzu was in a safe place, unknown even to HQ. Reito called Suo to his room and asked her to hop in the shower with him. She initially misunderstood, but he just wanted to tell her something privately. He revealed that he wanted to escape and wanted her to go with them. Deciding to use his request to her advantage, she told him that she would only go with him if he agreed to clap her. He was initially reluctant, but finally started to give in. She got unlucky as their session was interrupted by goons who broke the door down and demanded that the couple follow them. It was the Dark Leather Lover. She claimed that Sui and Akane were already taken in. She wanted to take them to an airport to protect them from Elisa's terrorist group. Before they could get in, Akane and Sui dropped her goons. She held Sue at point-blank range but got tased by Rhea, who they were surprised was actually a good guy. After they escaped, the HQ's goons started a search and capture. Mansfield held a meeting with Karen and Doi. After a lot of teasing and small talk, Karen revealed her intentions. She wanted to be put in charge of the Japan branch. The escaped convicts got to a hideout in the refugee area where Reito reunited with his sister. Rhea had connections from when she was a citizen relations officer, which helped her secure that location. After their reunion and a narrow escape from a MILF, they settled on making their escape that night. At night, Doi finally had time to give his girls a combined clapping session. His new age made his teachings more intense and they got tired afterwards. He stepped out and met Karen, who noticed that his new age was definitely kicking in as he was not as excited as usual. She told him about Reito's escape. He was surprised that the anti-clapper was brave enough to pull it off. Reito and his girls got to a harbor where they boarded a ship with the girl who worked with Elisa. After he said goodbye to Sue, as she and Rhea couldn't make the trip, they set sail. Mahiru brought him a tab. Hino was calling to commend his bravery and wished him well on his mission. Hino didn't like his restrictions, but he wasn't going to leave his girls alone. Hearing that made his attendant satisfied with her existence. Mansfield gave the dark leather lover a strong beating for failing the mission. Next was Rhea and Swu, who had been arrested. Doi, who saw Reina and had developed a crush, was taken to the screen room by Karen. She showed Reina to him and told him that he could have her as part of her arrangement with Mansfield, which allowed him to keep on clapping. Meanwhile, Rado finally got to Taiwan where Elisa was waiting. The long-lost lovers finally got the reunion of their dreams and got ready to finish what they started.